If you've heard anything about Bitcoin over the years, you've probably heard that it was created by Satoshi Nakamoto. If you've done some digging, though, you might be a little confused because nobody actually knows who or what Satoshi Nakamoto is. But there are plenty of people claiming to be Satoshi, and even more people claiming to have actually seen Satoshi. So who really created Bitcoin? Well, join me today as we look at Satoshi Nakamoto and ask, who created Bitcoin and why? In this series, we break down complicated topics in history into small, digestible chunks so you can get a better understanding of the world around you. And one of the most complicated topics in recent history is definitely Bitcoin. In fact, if you don't already understand how Bitcoin works, go check out my series explaining Bitcoin before coming back to this video. That way, we'll all be on the same page and you will understand some of the terminology that we're going to throw around in this episode. So let's get started with a quick history lesson. Bitcoin was first described in 2008 in a research paper authored by Satoshi Nakamoto. The paper itself outlines many of the ideas that went into the creation of Bitcoin, but it does leave us with a few questions, namely, who is Satoshi Nakamoto? It seems like the author of the paper disappeared shortly after the white paper was published. They made their last post on a cryptography mailing list on April 2009 and then basically disappeared from the face of the earth. They didn't publish any more articles, give any more interviews, and haven't been spotted in public. Ever since the general consensus among the Bitcoin community was that Satoshi Nakamoto did not want to be famous, so they kept themselves anonymous. There were also rumors that Satoshi had moved on from the project and left it in the hands of the very capable developers in the Bitcoin community. However, over the past few years, there has been a lot of debate over whether Satoshi is still involved in Bitcoin and whether they're just hiding or if they're actually long gone. There are several pieces of evidence that point towards Satoshi being more than just an alias. For example, there are posts attributed to Satoshi on various forums and discussion boards. Many of these posts are written in Japanese, which lends credence to the idea that Satoshi is in fact a Japanese person. This makes sense considering that the name Nakamoto is Japanese. In fact, Nakamoto is a fairly common Japanese surname, and there are even celebrities with the name, such as musician and songwriter Yutaka Nakamoto. However, this isn't hard proof that Satoshi is Japanese. People can use aliases, and many people in Japan have the last name Nakamoto. Satoshi also appears to have had a strong grasp of the science behind Bitcoin. For example, there's a paper written by Vladimir Oros and Paul Stork called Mastering Bitcoin Programming. In it, the authors wrote a section detailing how the Bitcoin protocol could be improved. Shortly after the paper was published, one of the authors posted a message on a forum asking for feedback. They included the full text of the paper and asked that any suggestions be made directly on the paper itself. What's interesting here is that someone did make suggestions, but they weren't just suggestions, they were corrections. It turns out that there were several flaws in the paper, and they would have prevented the blockchain from working properly. Luckily, though, Satoshi was able to point out the issues, and the Bitcoin protocol was changed before launch to avoid these issues. Some members of the Bitcoin community believe that this demonstrates that Satoshi had a deep understanding of how the protocol worked, something that only the creator could know. In addition to the corrections, Satoshi also participated in early development and helped implement a peer-to-peer payment system in 2009. This may seem strange given that Satoshi didn't want to reveal their identity, but it also goes to show that they knew the inner workings of Bitcoin better than anyone else. So if Satoshi is more than just an alias, who is it? Well, there are two popular theories, one that points to a group of people and one that points to an individual. Let's start with the group theory. This theory proposes that Satoshi Nakamoto is not a single person, but instead a group of programmers who were brought together by Hal Finney. Remember Hal Finney? He's the guy who sent the first Bitcoin ever and the recipient of the first Bitcoin transaction. While he doesn't seem to be a part of the Bitcoin conspiracy theories, he did send those early Bitcoins to Satoshi and then later said that he was working on his own cryptocurrency before Satoshi reached out to him. So it's possible that he played a role in the creation of Bitcoin. Several people have come forward claiming to be part of the team that Satoshi led. Most notably, one of the authors of the Mastering Bitcoin book claimed that he was the business side of the group. There's also a podcast where two Australian entrepreneurs claim to be Satoshi. Now, while these claims are interesting, there's no real evidence that either of them are actually Satoshi. So it's hard to say for sure that a group of people didn't create Bitcoin. But what we do know is that whoever did create Bitcoin had programming experience. After all, the currency itself is a cryptographic protocol, so it likely took a team of very smart people to bring the whole thing together. In fact, the code that Satoshi wrote is still considered to be some of the best code ever written. Now this brings us to our second theory, the one that attributes Bitcoin to a single person. The most popular claim comes from a man named Dorian Nakamoto. Dorian is a computer scientist and worked at the National Security Agency. A journalist tracked him down and asked him a few questions about his involvement in Bitcoin. Dorian denied creating the currency, but he did admit to working on a similar project that could have easily turned into Bitcoin. Now remember that Satoshi Nakamoto is a Japanese name and Dorian is a distinctly American name. Despite this, a Newsweek reporter insisted that Dorian was Japanese-American and the interview was conducted in Japanese. Dorian disputes this claim, saying that he speaks less than 100 words of Japanese, and the interview was done in English. Whether or not Dorian is Satoshi will likely never be known for sure, but it's worth mentioning that Dorian himself is quite wealthy. When he was interviewed in 2014, he reportedly had between 30,000 and 50,000 bitcoins, which is worth over $1 billion today. While it's fun to read up on these different stories and theories, the truth is that none of them have any real evidence to back them up. We simply don't know who Satoshi Nakamoto is. It's possible that it's a group of people or a single person. It could be a pseudonym used by a government agency, or perhaps it's a code name for a secret project. There are a million different possibilities, and that's part of what makes Bitcoin so intriguing. But let's answer the second question in our title. Why did someone create Bitcoin? Well, there are a couple of reasons that Satoshi gave in the white paper, and they all boil down to control. Satoshi wanted to create a currency that wasn't controlled by any single entity. Up until the creation of Bitcoin, all currencies were issued by governments or central banks, which meant that each country had complete control over their currency. Countries could print more money, which devalued the currency and made it easier to pay off debt. They could also freeze bank accounts or seize assets, which allowed them to control the assets of their citizens. Now, Bitcoin eliminates both of these things. Since it's decentralized, no single entity has control over the network, and new Bitcoins are released at a steady rate set by the protocol itself. In fact, there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoins. So Bitcoin removes a lot of the control that central banks and governments typically have over a currency. Now, some people might see this as a bad thing, but many others value their freedom and independence highly. For example, imagine you live in a country with a dictator, and that dictator doesn't like you. They could easily freeze your bank account and prevent you from leaving the country because you do not have any money. You're stuck where the dictator wants you to be. Now imagine that you had some Bitcoin. Then you could move to a different country, sell your Bitcoin, and buy yourself a plane ticket without the dictator knowing about it. In this way, Bitcoin gives individuals more freedom and independence. Of course, this is only one perspective. There are plenty of other reasons to create Bitcoin, and plenty of other reasons not to use it. And that's all okay. Everyone has their own opinion on Bitcoin, and that's great. What's not great is when people spread misinformation about Bitcoin. The reality is that Bitcoin is a financial technology that is revolutionizing the way we think about money. It's decentralized, meaning that no single entity has control over it. And it's digital, meaning that transactions can be verified quickly and easily. But the future of Bitcoin is still uncertain. While it has grown in popularity in recent years, it remains to be seen whether it will become a mainstream currency or remain on the fringes of finance. Only time will tell. The truth is that Bitcoin is a fascinating invention, and it will be interesting to see how it develops over the coming years. But one thing is for sure, the true identity of Satoshi Nakamoto may never be known. Bitcoin is complicated, but it doesn't have to be. We've broken down the entire concept into easy-to-understand chunks in our series. Start watching right now to learn everything you need to know about Bitcoin. As always, don't forget to like this video and to subscribe Danny Crypto channel for more videos.